Hi guys, Cinematic Recapped here. Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today, I'm gonna explain an American romantic drama and fantasy movie, called What Women Want. The movie tells the story of Nick Marshall, a Chicago advertising executive who was raised by his Las Vegas showgirl mother, but he does not have a father. Therefore, his mother kept him surrounded by typical men who slept with different women every night, just as he does now as an adult. Nowadays, he has an ex-wife named Gigi, and they have a 15-year-old daughter named Alex, who lives with his mother. However, Nick's relationship with his daughter does not seem to be good because he does not really care about his daughter. Before going to work, he meets his love interest, Lola, who works in a coffee shop. In his office, Nick is a master at selling products to men and seducing women, causing some of his women colleagues uncomfortable. However, he has absolutely no idea about women's feelings. After that, he attends a meeting, in which he expects to get a promotion at the advertising firm Sloan Curtis, but his manager, Dan, instead announces that he is hiring a woman named Darcy to broaden the firm's appeal to women as the company is looking for a new strategy of selling products to women. After work, he goes to his ex-wife's wedding, where Gigi says that she will be on her honeymoon with her new husband, Ted, for the next 2 weeks. Hence, she wants to leave Alex with Nick until she returns from her honeymoon. Besides that, she also tells him that their daughter now has a boyfriend. Hearing that, Nick actually does not approve of his daughter having a boyfriend, but since Alex has not received affection from him, she does not care about his words. The next day, Nick attends the staff meeting where Darcy directs the company to target female consumers as their top priority. She even proposes a different kind of campaign to make the company more sensitive to women. Therefore, she distributes boxes to the staff, including Nick, containing women's products and tasks them to develop advertising ideas to sell the products. However, Darcy's idea increases Nick's distrust of her because he is a chauvinist and only sees women as objects. That night, Nick tests all the women's products while looking for advertising ideas. Not long after, his daughter suddenly comes in with her boyfriend, Cameron, who is 18 years old. Although Alex does not mind finding her father dressed like that, she is very upset because Nick took her one of her music discs without her permission. She gets even more angrier after her father proves that he never listens to her by not remembering her boyfriend's name. After the argument, Alex gets inside her room while Nick continues to look for another idea. However, he suddenly stumbles and ends up falling in the bathtub while holding an electric hair dryer, electrocuting himself. Because of that, he collapses on the floor until his housemaid, Stella, wakes him the next morning. Since then, Nick has somehow been able to hear all women's thoughts, although Nick still does not realize his new ability at first. He then goes to his office, where he finally has an epiphany, realizing that most of his women colleagues who always smile to him at work, actually dislike him and consider him sleazy. He also discovers that one of his women colleagues, Erin, seems to be depressed with her life after hearing her thoughts. Apart from that, the thing that bothers him the most is hearing so many thoughts at once, which drives him crazy. Because of this, Nick tries to ask his partner for help, but he does not believe his words either. During a meeting with Darcy, Nick uses his ability to impress her, but no matter how many times he reads all the thoughts of his female colleagues, his ideas are still rejected by her. At night, he tries to recreate everything he had done before gaining the ability. He tries all the women's products again and uses the rainy weather to electrocute himself, but his efforts are in vain when he finds out that he can still hear women's thoughts the following day. Hence, Nick makes an impromptu visit to his former therapist, Dr. Perkins, who treated him and his ex-wife 10 years ago. After finding out about his ability, she initially does not believe anything he says, but then she finally believes him after Nick starts telling her what she is thinking. Therefore, the doctor encourages him to use his newfound ability to his advantage as he can now know what women want. Afterwards, Nick visits Lola in a coffee shop where he uses his ability to ask her on a date. Not only that, he starts treating his women colleagues well, even helping a depressed Erin tidy up her fallen documents. When he meets Darcy, he telepathically eavesdrops on her and purloins her ideas to use as his own, making himself look good in front of Dan. At the same time, he also gradually becomes interested in her. Nick then returns home only to find Alex with her friends talking about their prom night. To make amends, he invites her to go shopping for a prom dress another day. Later, he goes on a date with Lola, which does not go so well at first, but he ends up discovering that his ability is actually very useful while making love, winning her over. From now on, he really likes being around women to know their thoughts and feelings. Nick also starts spending a lot of time together with Darcy, who admires him for being able to understand her thoughts. His relationship with Alex is getting better after taking his daughter to buy a dress for the prom he promised earlier. After that, the two have lunch at a restaurant where Nick telepathically finds out that Alex intends to sleep with Cameron at the night of the prom. As a result, he attempts to give her some advice, telling her that Cameron is not interested in her for who she is, just for what he can do with her in bed. However, Alex ends up rejecting his advice as she thinks that her father is being overprotective and trying to sabotage her prom. Soon, Nick goes on a date with Darcy, and the two become very romantic. After the dinner, they end up kissing, but he gently rejects her when she wants to invite him to her home. When Nick is about to enter his apartment, Lola suddenly approaches him as she thinks that their relationship was going to be something serious, saying that she cannot stand it if he does not call her to see her again. Since Nick does not want to hurt women anymore, he lies by telling her that he actually likes other men. The following morning, Nick feels guilty after stealing Darcy's latest idea for a new Nike ad campaign aimed at women, so he asks her to present the new campaign. However, she does not want to because she thinks that she does not deserve credit for the new campaign. Plus, she wants the best for Nick since she is totally in love with him. Before the presentation, Nick accidentally hears Erin's suicidal thought due to the job that Nick has given her for the past 2 years. Long story short, his presentation goes really well and Nike eventually closes the deal. Since he still wants to apologize to Darcy, Nick decides to write her a letter to confess everything he did, but Darcy suddenly interrupts him to celebrate their success. Afterwards, she takes him to her new house which is still under renovation. Inside, they both spend the whole time by talking and dancing. Sometime later, Nick goes to work determined to fix his mistake by telling Dan that Darcy was the one who had all the ideas. However, Dan is already convinced that Nick is his best employee and decides to give him the promotion. Because of that, Nick eventually regrets his actions, especially when Dan fires Darcy because she did not contribute anything to the new campaign. He then persuades Dan to rehire her, convincing him again that the campaign was her original idea. Shortly after, he realizes that Erin does not go to work that day, so he decides to look for her even though it is raining. On his way, a severe lightning storm strikes some of the wires above him, but he ignores it as nothing happened to him. He then quickly goes to Erin's house to find a suicide note. Fortunately, she has not had the chance to end her life yet. As Nick talks with her, he realizes that he has finally lost his ability to hear women's thoughts. To prevent her from committing suicide, he offers Erin a better position which he had previously turned her down, and she accepts. After that, he goes to Darcy's house, where she completely ignores him because she is not in a good mood. Meanwhile, Nick gets a call from Gigi who is worried about their daughter. Thus, he goes to the prom night to find Alex crying inside a bathroom stall because Cameron dumped her for refusing to have sex. After trying to console her, Alex finally comes outside and the two go back home together, cementing their newly repaired relationship. When his daughter falls asleep, he tries once again to apologize to Darcy, so he looks for her at her new house. This time, she allows him to come in, and Nick finally explains everything to her. Although she initially fires him for everything he did, Darcy ends up forgiving him just before he leaves her house. In the end, Nick finally learns that he cannot treat women like objects and they both share a kiss, living happily ever after. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.